Tom today with another exciting episode for you, and I find myself today sitting on a tractor here in the middle of Vermont. Let's go ahead into the garden and show you guys some of the growth, some of the things that are growing, and then actually at the end of this episode we're going to actually introduce you to the gardener here, but also one of the first and foremost rock dust advocates in the entire country. His name is Tom. So anyways, let's check out Tom's gardens first. So this is the garden here, and they have different raised beds, or kind of like, you know, mounded up beds, not really raised up. And they have a nice, really rich bed of the basil here. And they're growing a lot of, besides just the food crops, they're growing a lot of medicinal crops that I've learned about, like the mullein and the mugwort, and they got some comfrey and all kinds of cool stuff. They got catnip. So now we're in the fruit tree orchard. As you guys can see, we got apple trees. And I mean, the amazing thing for me is that these apple trees are actually quite productive. Look at the production on this tree. I mean, I haven't seen production like this in quite a long time. If we look at this, I mean, normally these apples will be thinned out because this is just way too many apples for one tree. And normally they might have branches breaking that they'd have to prop up and do all this stuff. But the amazing thing is, by using the rock dust minerals, you know, they got like large harvests, a lot of fruit, plus the branches are nice and strong. All right, so here we are. So this is Tom Vanderkoor, and how's it going, Tom?
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me out. Tom, why is it that sometimes rock dusts just simply don't work? And I know there's more than one reason.
Well, rock dusts are technically insoluble minerals. In other words, they're minerals of low solubility, so that without the presence of either microbial action or some other process of weathering, which releases the nutrient value in the minerals, rock dust will basically just essentially sit there. So you can apply rock dust to sandy soils, as an example, which is devoid of carbon or microbial population, put water on it, and you're not really going to get the full effects. So there are possibilities where you would apply a rock dust and not get immediate effects. You might find effects over time. There's also mitigating factors. For instance, if you are putting out incompletely digested compost or poorly made compost, or if you're putting out poorly made biochar, as an example, and you apply rock dust, what's going to happen is that the rock dust is going to be taken up by the microbes or other assimilating factors in digesting those poorly made composts, or is going to be taken up by the char itself and robbing nutrients from the plant. So you may have all the constituents that you need potentially, but they're not assimilated in a way that help your plant. So there are many studies that could show in the first growing season why putting rock dust down, if it's the wrong rock dust, if it's in the wrong environment with the wrong materials, will either form either no appreciable response, growth response, or actually you might see some negative response. And we've seen that especially in the scientific trials we've done with biochar, as an example. Poorly made biochar is going to depress growth in the first year. Well-made biochar, remineralized biochar, is going to increase growth in the first year. So those, you know, you can really see it both ways. And I'm sure people have agendas out there. If you're trying to create a condition for failure, I'm sure that there's easy ways of doing that. But what we're trying to do is create the conditions for success.
And that's what I try to do with you guys, is, you know, I try to teach you guys the successful practices, organic, biologic practices that I like to do. And, you know, rock dust is one of the keys that I like to do. And if you're trying to duplicate what I do to get the results I get, and you're not doing rock dust, you're not doing the other components like the, you know, the bacterial component, which I like to get from inoculants, but also the, you know, compost teas, or you're not adding the organic matter, you know, like I like to add in, you know, good quality, not only bacterial based compost, but also fungal based compost, you're not going to get the results, you know. So that's very important. So Tom, so I know you've had a really tough gardening season here, and I mean, a lot of your garden looks great and some of it doesn't look so good, and you've said in past years it's even looked better. Like, how do you think rock dust could really help people have a better garden, no matter whatever the weather conditions that are not controllable, because they can control the soil and the quality of the soil for their plants?
Well, it's been pretty well shown that heavy mineralized soil with carbon, you know, in the form of compost or wood chips or whatever plant matter, decomposed plant matter, will create a mineral-rich plant. So that mineral-rich plant is going to be more drought-resistant. For instance, we had a very dry, extremely dry spell in the beginning. We haven't been watering heavily, but we still have plants. We still have fruit-bearing plants. Here in the north, we have potential for either early frost or late frost. So you're going to get frost resistance because the plant isn't going to be predominantly water. It's going to have a lot more mineral content, which you can check with your Brix meters and things like that. And so you're hedging against the vagaries of weather, and also a healthy plant will be more disease resistant and more pest resistant. Not to say that pests won't come and munch on your plants. I mean, my orchard, we have pests in there. We've got some disease in our tomatoes, but it doesn't kill off the plant. The plant will, you know, in an early blight situation, you may get some leaf spot or something like that, and the plant will wall off that branch, and that branch will fall off, but the plant will continue to grow. It's because the plant is higher functioning. It's more mineral rich, and of course, whatever fruit or vegetables that you harvest are going to be resultingly more nutritious for you. So it's pretty simple that way.
So Tom, let's talk about the more nutritious, because once again, there's, you know, guys run tests, and I don't know how they're doing it, but they say, I grew stuff with rock dust, sent it off to the lab to get analyzed, and it wasn't more nutritious. I mean, how would you respond to that?
Well, we've seen some tests, and we've been involved in some scientific tests where we provide rock dust and biochar, and we give it to a third party and they design their own tests and their own protocols. And again, you'll have conditions where your rock dust and your biochars and whatever it is you're putting on will be optimal and optimally used. And in those cases, generally you'll see in the tissue analysis and your quick Brix metering and everything, you'll see a higher density, a higher mineral content, nutrient density in the plant. But there'll be conditions if as I was saying before, if your compost is poorly finished or of poor feedstock, and you'll have a condition where the compost, as it decomposes, is actually robbing nitrogen from the plants themselves. So what you think you're fertilizing with compost, what you're actually doing is just robbing the nutrients from the plant. As that decomposition takes place, it's taking nitrogen and other vital nutrients. And if you apply rock dust to that situation, the bacteria and the microbes that are digesting the compost will actually be ingesting the rock dust rather than your plant. So the best thing to do in these cases, if you want your optimal condition, is feed your rock dust to your compost first, finish the compost and apply that material to your planting beds. Then you will see the optimal uptake of a rock mineral that has essentially been assimilated by microbial population into a usable form for the plants. That's a recipe for success, and in that case you will almost always see the positive results in your nutrient density.
Yeah, provided you're using a good rock dust, which we'll talk about actually in 1 second, right after we talk about this book here. So Tom, this book called Geotherapy, it's called Innovative Methods of Soil Fertility Restoration, Carbon Sequestration, and Reversing CO2 Increase. And this is a book that's, I don't even know, over 500 pages. So if you want the documented research on rock dust, guess what, guys? It's all in this book. You guys need to pick up this book. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and read all 500 pages. I know I've used the rock dust, I've tried it, it works. You know, it's a lot easier to just try rock dust and see the example, see how it works in your garden if applied properly, if you got the right kind of, rock dust, instead of just buy a book and read about it. But I know there's a lot of you tech heads out there that want to know how this stuff works. Well, go out and get this book. So you want to tell us about this book and how you actually contributed in part to this book?
Sure. This is a book that was edited by Dr. Thomas Garreau, who is one of the foremost marine biologist specializing in coral restoration. He also happens to know a lot about geology and plant life on the shores. Joanna Compe, who's the director of Remineralize the Earth, which is the nonprofit that promotes remineralization, and Ronald Larson, who is considered an expert in the use of biochar. What they did was they called for papers. These are scientific papers. Some, if not all, are peer-reviewed, and these papers came in from all over the world, and they deal with the subject of remineralization, uses of rock dust for remineralization, the use of biochar, and some other types of fertility methods, all aimed at sequestering and capturing carbon ultimately. And so that's the theme of the book. There's a number of different articles in here. I contributed to a chapter called I don't even know what the chapter is called here. It was a study. It was a study that we contributed to on the New Harmony Farm in 2012, which is in Massachusetts, in Newbury, Massachusetts, and it documented the interaction of basalt rock dust, which was a local rock dust that we sourced and prepared and delivered to the site, and biochar. And they had a number of plots and replicates, so it was a technical study with the people out there with their clipboards and all of that, and they documented what the different application rates of basalt and basalt with biochar against the controls. In other words, the control was what is the native soil, and they grew beets and radishes, and I believe those were their two main crops. And what they did was they followed the growth through the stage from planting to harvest, and then they one of the more important parts of the study was they actually took samples of the soil respiration. So they actually they did levels of respiration of the soil post-harvest. So after the plants had been taken away, a fellow named Jim Tang from Woods Hole Institute came up with his assistants, and they actually measured the respiration of the soil, which means essentially the breathing of the soil, the CO2 and the nitrogen compounds, which generally go back into the air during decomposition after harvest. So there's this carbon cycle that goes on, and what they found was in the plots with the basalt and the biochar, both basalt alone and biochar alone, and basalt and biochar together, those plots against the control actually captured carbon in the form of otherwise would have gone off in the form of CO2, and nitrogen compounds, which were their nitrogenous release of nitrogen from the soil back to the air. Now that's important because CO2 is a primary gas associated with the greenhouse effect. That's global warming, as is nitrogen. And so by showing that the addition of rock dust and biochar, either singularly or together, had the effect of capturing carbon and nitrogen is very significant. And this is one of the first studies ever published, and certainly the first in recent, in the last few years, to document in no uncertain terms the ability of carbon, the ability of soil to be a carbon sink with the use of minerals such as the basalts and biochar, a well-prepared biochar. So and this book is just full of those sorts of studies. Everything from reforestation efforts in Brazil to tropical. I'll read a couple of these. Global biochemical restoration to stabilize CO2 at safe levels. Potential annual cumulative carbon dioxide removal via biochar. potential of remineralization as a global movement, rates and mechanisms of functional mineral reactions in soils, geology into biology, carbon, minerals, and microbes, tools to remineralize soil, sequester carbon, and restore the earth. And these are all very well written and well documented, in many cases very hard science reports. And I think it's, for those people who don't believe in this stuff, it's in black and white, and this is real, it's happening now, and it's absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. I mean, if you guys are an environmentalist and a gardener, you should have already got the rock dust to help do your part to, help with the climate change, but also grow higher quality food. All right, Tom, so next I want to bring up the topic of different types of rock dust. So, if you go back like a couple 4 years in my videos, I was using in my garden, like, 2 different kinds of rock dust, and one of the ones was a glacial rock dust, and I was always, when asked, I would recommend either a glacial rock dust or like a volcanic basalt type rock dust. And nowadays, actually, after new information, I'm now changing my recommendations to you guys on, I want to really try to get the volcanic or basalt rock dust instead of the glacial style rock dust. So Tom made me aware of this. So Tom, what's some of the challenges with the glacial style rock dusts?
Well, a good glacial rock dust is potentially a great rock dust for remineralization. The problem with commercially sourcing and creating a product which is uniform from ton to ton is that glacial deposits by nature are vary from strata to strata. It's very difficult to find a glacial material that is uniform from one section of the mine to the other. The other reality about glacial materials is that they're placers, they're essentially sediments, and because it's been so long since the last glacial epoch, which we're talking about 10-12,000 years now since the end of the last glaciation, many of the more friable, more softer minerals which are plant available have been washed away or washed downstream and settled out, and so what's remaining tends to be in glacial deposits. You'll find a lot of silica in the form of quartzite and fewer of the more friable, more plant available nutrients that are necessary for a good rock dust for remineralization. Not to say good glacial rock dust is bad, but our findings is that both from geochemistry and also working with the materials in the field is that the whole rock, igneous or metamorphic basalt type rock dusts are plentiful, available in different areas of the country, and tend to be extremely valuable, full of both alkaline earth elements and minor trace nutrients. And also from ton to ton and from year to year, those materials have a very similar analysis, which we do check carefully for uniformity. So those were a comparison. It's not to say that a good bank run gravel in the right place, from a nearby crusher wouldn't do you some good. I think it would, but to choose to ship and move materials around, which we have to go for the best materials that we can find. We're putting a lot of effort into both the mining and gathering and transport, so we want to make sure that we're moving the best materials, and we think that the volcanic rock dust tend to be the better of the type of geologic materials. We're also looking at some of the carbonates, which have more of a liming quality, but those are for specific end uses. When you're trying to buffer your soil or create the condition, if you have acidic soils, to bring the pH up, we do source rock dusts that tend to have that action over time as well. So those are specific things that we look at depending upon the environment.
All right, cool. So let's talk about one of the most widely available rock dust is actually known as the Azomite brand rock dust. And actually that's not really a rock dust, is it? It's more of a clay dust or clay powder. And and how does that relate to this whole rock dust thing? And is it good, bad, indifferent, or what would you say on that?
That's a really good point. When you think about the nature of soils are silt, which are weathered types of parent rocks, about a third silt, a third clay, and a third basically hard rock material in the form of sand. So you'll see the clay in there, you'll see the rock minerals in there, and then this sort of homogenized material that could have organic matter in it, generally a very fine particle silt. So the clay rock dust, which are clay geology, such as the azomite, which is I believe has a component of a montmorillonite type clay, is an important material, both structurally. It has the ability to exchange cations, which are nutritive properties for nutritive materials for plants. So the azomite is a good clay-like material. As a rock dust material, I think it's a good component. It would be good to use an azomite-like material, and there's a few of them out there. There's the accelerite, elamite, those are other commercial brands, azomite. And then with these hard rock materials such as the basalt together, and they will give different attributes to the soil, create different sorts of interactions with microbes, and so blending the right kind of minerals together and doing it judiciously, I think is a good idea. You don't have to do it all in 1 year. That's another really great thing about rock dust minerals. If you put them in, it's almost like building a bank account. You can put on rock dust heavily or clay dust heavily. In 1 year you can apply a basalt rock dust. In another year you can use the more clay-like materials. In the third year you may concentrate on other parts of your fertilities, for instance building carbon or other organic matters, and forget about the rock minerals for a year or two. You know, it really depends upon building a whole environment that is based on carbon, minerals, and microbes. Those are your foundation, and the rock dust is a foundational material.
Yeah, and it's sad to me that most gardeners haven't heard of rock dust or not even using it yet. And I think you guys definitely should, because it is totally foundation to my style of gardening, which it's not even my style of gardening, it's just nature's style of gardening or growing, right? All these things would be in nature, the minerals and the microbes, you know, organic matter, if we didn't ever disturb the soil. So Tom, I want to really get into some other topics here, like one of the biggest topics, you know, since you did mention biochar earlier. And, you know, of course, using biochar and the rock dust together and properly prepared biochar is the best. But, you know, you're the rock dust guy. If you had to only choose one, this might be a loaded question, which one did you choose? It is more important for people that could only afford one if they're on a limited budget. Like, should they choose biochar or should they choose the rock dust, and why?
That is a loaded question. I mean, for my mind, a well-prepared biochar will include rock dust minerals. If the biochar has no rock minerals in it, and I had to choose between rock dust and biochar, which I would consider a poorly prepared biochar, I would choose a rock dust because of the need for the nutritive value in those minerals. You can get other sources of carbon. Basically, biochar, the raw char or charcoal, is a matrix of carbon which is left over in biomass, in the pyrolysis of biomass or the preparation of the char. But you're not going to get significant and appreciable amounts of available nutrients just in charcoal. So if I had to choose between a poorly prepared biochar and rock dust minerals, I would always choose the rock dust. Having said that, the best biochars are using rock dust minerals, and we provide some of the really good biochar makers in this country with rock dust for their biochar preparations. And we also prepare what we call rich mix, which is stands for remineralized inoculated char. We prepare a base mix for plants, which is combined rock dust, biochar, and mycorrhizal fungi in the form of dormant spore. That's our formulation. Out on the west coast, you've got Pacific Biochar, which is Josiah Hunt's doing a great cultured biochar. In the middle of the country, you've got TerraChar, which is Phil Blum's. Over here in the east, you've got Soil Reef, which is Jeff Whalen's company. And then there's a number of other boutique or smaller biochar makers that are doing just phenomenal work. So I think it's an up and coming material. The best biochars will combine rock minerals without question.
So one of the most important things I learned this trip is actually just like you should activate your biochar before use, and I have a video that I made in Hawaii with Josiah Hunt on how to activate the biochar. Check the link down below for that video. You should also be activating your rock dust, and this is something totally new to me that I had no clue about, although I have been using what Tom is activating his rock dust with separately in my garden as an additional amendment. But Tom, let's talk about activating your rock dust, why it's important, and how to do it.
Okay, we've found some basic materials and some new finds which we think are really important. Essentially what we want to do is to create a carbon matrix so that that the microbes and other beneficial life forms can inhabit. But in addition to that, to help assimilate and chelate the rock dust minerals, if we start using humic and fulvic acid complexes, which are found in naturally occurring carbon deposits, humic shales, some types of leonardite, which are associated with a brown coal, and top of the plant materials, which we are calling bioflavonoids or flavonoids. These will stimulate the plant to create the conditions in the root zone where they will actually uptake the nutrients in the soils by putting out, they call them root exudates. They're basically forcing down sugars which are feeding microbes, which in turn create this condition of assimilation, and at the same time will fix carbon in the soil. So we are talking about humic and fulvic acids, or natural organic acids, which are very complex and numbers of them. And we're also using in foliar feeding the flavonoid. There's an Australian company that produces a material called Crop BioLife we're using. There isn't really, as far as I know, they're the best producer of this particular material, and flavonoids are well known for human consumption and human health. In the same way, plants benefit from this. You spray it on the leaf, foliar feeding. It stimulates the plant to create its higher plant metabolites, which are these higher compounds that regulate all the top of the plant functions, everything from stimulating plant growth to fighting off disease or infections, insect resistance, and things like that. So those are what I'm calling crop synergists. They themselves can't be called fertilizers per se because they're not recognized as fertilizers, but they're cofactors. They help chelate, and they help the plant chelate minerals. In the case of the fulvic minerals themselves, fulvic and humic minerals, these are complex organic acids that actually will attach to and free up the vital elements, and will transport those elements into the plant or through the plant wall when it's applied to the leaf, or if it's applied in the soil, it'll actually carry those nutrients in proximity to the microbial populations, which then can uptake the nutrients for the in the root zone for the plant.
All right, Tom, so I mean, we have limited time. This video is already getting really long. I could just sit here with you all day, and I'm sure a lot of my viewers may appreciate a really long interview, and a lot of you guys actually don't appreciate long interviews. So I want to try to like really dive into the things that are really important to me to learn from you, since, you know, you're the expert and I'm here to learn. So another really important thing that I've heard about in rock dust is the paramagnetic activity, or paramagnetism. And what is this stuff? How could it affect me and my garden? You know, is it good? Is it bad? And how does the particle size of the rock dust, you know, affect the paramagnetism as well?
Well, you have to go back to the definitions of magnetism or paramagnetism to start understanding how these forces are present in certain rock dust, and how those forces or these attributes may actually affect plant growth. There have been studies done to indicate that paramagnetic rock dust that show a high degree of magnetic susceptibility, in other words, a field strength in the presence of a magnetic force, do contribute to plant growth. What's unclear is whether that is determination of the actual magnetic field strength somehow making the plant grow, or whether it is indicative of the type of elements which are inherent in the rock dust, which are paramagnetic and or ferromagnetic. My own personal opinion from what I've seen, and I've seen a lot of studies, I've seen some historical studies, and we've done our own studies here at the shop, is that it's probably a little bit of both. Where if you have a strong magnetism or paramagnetism, which essentially means weak magnetism, in a rock dust, which we check both in a quick meter, which basically measures field strength, and also we subject these materials to analysis, more in-depth analysis, where we're determining what fraction is ferromagnetic or iron, coming from iron or iron type elements, and which are paramagnetic, which are these weakly magnetic elements. Technically, paramagnetism means that there's a free electron in the outer shell. Now, of course, everybody doesn't really need to know that. The important thing is when there's a free electron available, it means that that element will readily bond with another element. In other words, it's a more reactive material. That's important for assimilation of nutrients, because you really need reactive elements in order to assimilate or create these molecules, these complex molecules. So paramagnetism in this regard, when you test a rock dust for a magnetic field strength, and you see that through analysis that material has those sorts of elements in it, that's a pretty good indication that that's going to be a good rock dust for remineralization or for any other purpose. It gets more complex when you start dealing with strongly magnetic forces, especially if you have a rock dust that seems to be right off the chart in terms of magnetism. Often that's associated with ferromagnetism, which it can be either iron oxides present of various natures. If it's a magnetite, as an example, magnetite is basically one of the strongest naturally occurring magnetic oxides or minerals on the planet. So the presence of magnetite iron in a rock dust will tend to augment the field strength of that material. So there's also a more complex thing going on in that some elements are diamagnetic, meaning that they repel in the presence of a magnetic field. They are repulsive. So paramagnetic and ferromagnetic are attractive forces, and diamagnetic is repulsive forces. And just like yin and yang and things like that, opposites, there are needed in both, and life forces actually uses both of these to function highly. And I'll give you an example of some paramagnetic elements and then some diamagnetic elements. As an example, one of the best known paramagnetic materials is oxygen. It's a highly paramagnetic material, so in other words, itself will have an attractive force in a field strength. This has a very important attributes with water. So one of the more interesting theories out there when it comes to magnetism and strongly magnetic rock dust is that it's going to affect the organization of water within the actual, not only in the plant but in the soils. And some researchers are suggesting that there are these super molecules that are essentially these huge water molecules where there's an alignment of many smaller individual water molecules into these superstructures called magnacules. And this has potentially great significance in terms of plant life and the way plants are influenced by magnetism and water. So hydrogen itself, which is part of a water molecule, it's a H2O. Hydrogen is diamagnetic. Oxygen is paramagnetic. Boron, which we were talking about a little bit before, is diamagnetic. Carbon, which is essentially the most important building block of life, is diamagnetic. Most people don't realize that. You just remember that oxygen is paramagnetic. Then you get magnesium is paramagnetic. Phosphorus is diamagnetic, it's repulsive force. And you can go on down the line. Iron, again, is a ferromagnetic material. So in the scale of the strength of magnetic field strength, iron is going to be much stronger, strong force than something like oxygen, as an example. So it's the complex interaction of these elements, and then in their molecular structure that causes life to work the way it does. And it's a constant pulling and pushing, and a weak repulsive force in the presence of a strong attractive force. These subtle interactions really make biologic systems work. And the rock dust the broad spectrum rock dust contain many elements, and those elements are made available to plants through the action of weathering and through microbial populations. They will organize insoluble minerals into life force, and it's a fascinating subject. And there are a few places that you can go to learn more about them.
Wow, yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of information for you guys to digest. Once again, you don't got to know all this stuff. Just use some good quality rock dust, which is actually what I want to get into next. So, Tom scoured the United States and beyond to find some of the best rock dusts here in the United States, and he has access to many, but he sells only a few on his website, some of the top grade ones. So next, I actually want to have Tom pull out some of his different rock dust to go over with you, like some of the ones that you want to buy if you don't have access to a local place where you could buy rock dust. Definitely order some through the mail if you're just a home gardener. If you're a big farmer or have acreage, then you could actually call Tom up and order by the super tote, like 2,000 pounds, or even by the truckload if you got acreage. And if I had acreage, I'd definitely be getting a hold of Tom and getting some a big truckload of rock dust delivered to me. All right, so the final part of this episode that I want to share with you guys is just some of the products that actually rockdustlocal.com has on its website that will ship to you. So Tom, you want to briefly explain some of the different products here first, and then after that I'll actually get into my favorite products and the special discounted pricing that I have for my viewers today.
Sure. Well, we were talking about the basalt as being the gold standard for rock dust for remineralization. We have a gradation called we call the Brix blend basalt. That would be this one here, where you see it has some of the grits and the fines in it. We've also blended this same material with the humates we discussed before, combining with humic and fulvic minerals. That's this material, that's called the Brix blend humate. We talked about biochar, combining biochar rock dust and mycorrhizal. This here is the rich mix biochar. This is a combination of rock dust, biochar, and inoculants. This right here is the black shale we call the St. George Black. It's a great carbonaceous shale, local Vermont economies. This here is a granite meal. It's a traditional granite dust for fruits and vegetables. This one is a microfine, which is the Pioneer Valley basalt in a stone flour gradation. It's very, very fine material. You can put it in suspension. And we also sell that material with the full rock activator, which is a fulvic mineral activator kit. And we're also selling and encouraging people to use the Crop BioLife, which is a bioflavonoid foliar application. And these are the basic materials that you could use in your gardening, or if you're a professional grower, you can include them in your management plan.
Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, there's so many different choices, and I don't want you guys to get confused. I mean, if you got like a millionaire or something, like buy like truckloads of each and put this on your garden. Most of us are not in that situation. So I really want to make it easy for you guys, because you could get confused on which one do I get, you know, what's the best and all this stuff. So I basically narrowed it down to like 2 of the best packages that you could get, actually. So the this guy right here, that's the brick blend. That's the basalt. This is probably one of the best basalt rock dusts available, and it's you know, some fines and some larger particulate. So that is going to be on the Growing Your Greens special discounted price, like 15% off the normal price from Rock Dust Local. So you're going to want to check the link right down below this video for the special page to get the special deal. And the other product that I really like a lot for myself that I actually will be start using really soon is actually the microfine version of the basalt. But not only that, but it's with the activator, so you're going to get better results. And then also with the bioflavonoids, you know, to help increase the yields. So this one is also on a special deal. And actually this package that I worked with Tom to put together for you guys is not available anywhere else. He has ones that are similar to this, but I've maxed out the amount of minerals and rock dust you're going to get, as well as these 2 good products, so you guys could get the excellent results in your garden that I'm getting in mine. And you know, as I go and visit different places throughout the country and even throughout the world, you know, I always find really cool stuff that I love sharing with you guys. And that's why I took, you know, the time out of my day today to do this. I mean, the day is half over. I've been here just walking around the farm and learning things, talking to Tom, and I learned so much more than I could just simply share in this episode. Tom, any final last words about when somebody has the choice to choose different rock dusts, what they should look for? Like, we got the granite dust here, and people will say inevitably, can I go down to the local stone shop and just collect their dust and put it on my garden?
Yeah, I guess the answer is no. I wouldn't recommend doing that, as I wouldn't recommend the avid gardener going to their nearest quarry to find rock dust. Generally, that's not a good idea. That's the service that Rock Dust Local provides. We spend a lot of time reviewing rock dust. We do extensive analysis. We make contacts with the quarries. We do our own blending and screening in many areas. Sometimes we do our own micronizing. So these are the kind of things that you should really leave to us. We're happy to locate the nearest best rock dust for professional growers if they want to find a rock dust, and you can go to our pages, the regional rock pages. We have a number of rock dust listed out, and geochemistry is available for download or upload. So those are the kind of considerations. On the facts page, you can learn a lot about rock dust in general and their various uses. There's a rock dust primer which you can download, and it's a nice document that spells out the difference of different kind of rock dust and how to use them. So I'd suggest you just do some reading and feel free to browse around. And we're also available by contact information, email. You can call us, and we're here to help you guys succeed.
Awesome, Tom. Yeah, so I mean, Tom, of course, is gonna, you know, promote what he's doing, but I always promote you guys. You know, good, better, best is what I like to teach you guys. And I would always personally say that some rock dust, in most cases, but not all, is better than not using anything. But of course, using the best rock dust, the ones that Tom has sourced you know, that has specific mineral analyses with different levels of different, you know, trace minerals and more larger macro minerals are definitely the best. And that's what I would encourage you guys. If you guys don't want to screw around with just getting maybe average so-so results and posting a video and saying rock dust doesn't work, like, get the best stuff, use it in the properly designed way, using the activator and the bioflavonoids to get the best results, and it will work for you. It has for me, and I'm confident it'll work for you as well. So be sure to check that link right down below to get the 2 special prices on the package deals that you're not going to get at normally going to Rock Dust Local, although they have some really excellent packages which you should also maybe look into. But these ones I specifically picked out for my viewers to get the most bang for your rock dust buck, because this stuff is actually, you know, a fair bit heavy, expensive to ship. And I know you guys may be watching this right now in the winter time, but now is the time to buy the rock dust, you know, and get it integrated into your compost. You know, start using it today and have it ready for when you are ready to plant out your spring garden. Even if you're not going to use it immediately, buy it now at the special low price, because the prices may be going up. So in any case, I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys like this episode, hey, please let me know by clicking that thumbs up. I'll be sure to go out of my way, like at this time, to visit Tom. I mean, I drove a couple extra hours, you know, out of my path to visit Tom, but it was definitely worth it for me to visit with him, to see what he's doing, to see all the different crazy rock dust in his shop, and to, more importantly, make this video and share with you guys and share with the world the power of remineralization through rock dust and how it can increase the nutrient density of food, increase the, you know, the yields you're getting, increase the quality and disease and pest resistance of your plants, as well as help sequester carbon. Like, rock dust is one of the answers in agriculture, and I want you guys to be getting on it really soon. And, you know, check that link down below to start ordering today so that you can start growing with rock dust tomorrow. And once again, you also want to click that subscribe button right down below this video. I have well over 1,100 videos now in all aspects of gardening that you guys can learn and glean information from to improve your gardening skills, growing skills. And also be sure to check my past episodes. You know, I have a lot of different episodes on all different varieties of topics, including, you know, soil remineralization through rock dust, through, you know, sea solids, and through adding biologics to your garden. I visit many different cool farms and places where you guys get to see what they're doing, so you could pick out the things that you want to use in your garden, right? And so, yeah, once again, this is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep on growing. All right, this is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and I find myself today sitting on a tractor here in the middle of Vermont, a place that I'd never probably thought I'd visit in my life, being from the West Coast.